Hello everyone, this is Shanna and I am here to do the 20th century book tag. I've decided that I'm going to basically tag myself and do some videos of older tags that no one's really doing anymore probably, and then just post them whenever I don't have anything better to post on my channel. Because I don't care if people don't tag me, I'll do them anyway because if they look like fun, so yeah. Let's just get right into it. The 20th century book tag was started by Words of a Reader. I will link her original video in the description. And the point of it is you need to pick a book for each decade of the 20th century. So 1900s, 1910s, 1920s, so on up to the 1990s. And the books can be either books that were published in that decade or books that are set in that decade. I ended up with a mix of the two just because I didn't have 10 books of one or the other. And I don't know if it's considered cheating or not, but I do have 2 nonfiction books in there because I didn't have anything fiction that would fit. So let's just go right in. For the 1900s, Bachelor Girl by Roger Lee McBride. This tells a story of Rose, who is Laura Ingalls Wilder's daughter, so the next generation of the Little House type books. And this is the last one. It's set in about 1903, 1904, when Rose is 17 and moving to San Francisco to be an independent young woman and find a job and all kinds of fun stuff. For the 1910s, it's one of my nonfiction, and that is Shock Troops, Canadians Fighting the Great War 1917 to 1918 by Tim Cook. This is actually volume 2 of a 2-volume work about Canadians fighting the First World War. The first book deals with 1914 to 1916. And this is a really great duology. You should read it if you have the chance. 1920s, this is a big cheat. It is another nonfiction one, but more than that, this is for the 1920s, but it's actually Pierre Berton's The Great Depression, 1929 to 1939. Technically, it starts in the 20s, so I'm going to count it because I had absolutely nothing else. So, obviously, this is about the Great Depression, so this is my 1920s one. Canadian history, again. 1930s, because you haven't heard enough about these from me, Little House in the Big Woods by Laura Ingalls Wilder, because this was published originally in 1932. For the 1940s, this one was a bit of a surprise. I grabbed it off the shelf thinking it would be like 80s or 90s or something. Actually, this one is from 1948, is the original copyright. So that is Marguerite Henry's King of the Wind. And it is the story of the Godolphin Arabian, which is one of these bloodlines that is in pretty much all thoroughbred racing horses now. So this is just kind of a fictionalized account of that horse's life. So yeah, this was 1948. For the 50s, I have Fury, Stallion of Broken Wheel Ranch by Albert G. Miller. This was originally published in 1959, although this printing is 1971. And it's just kind of a classic boyhood adventure thing. They catch a wild Mustang stallion and tame him, and that just adventures go on from there with the boy and his horse. 1960s. This was another surprise. I didn't know this was this old. Beverly Cleary's The Mouse and the Motorcycle was originally printed in 1965. 1965. I had no idea this was that old. Boy who has a mouse and gets a little motorcycle for his mouse, and the mouse learns to ride it. And shenanigans ensue. So, 1960s. 1970s. The monster at the end of this book. This, along with a book called Purple Hair I Don't Care, were my favorite books as a like little kid. And this one was originally published in 1971. So, 1980s. I had a hard time picking, but I went with this one. This is The Canadian Children's Treasury. And it is a collection of short stories that were either about Canada, written by Canadians, that sort of thing. It does include some First Nations stories as well, which is wonderful. And I claimed this over my siblings with plans to read it to my hypothetical children. Anyway, this was published in 1988, and it is a wonderful collection. Then, finally, 1990s, I went with R.L. Stine and Cheerleaders, the New Evil. This is one of the Fear Street books, which were pretty ubiquitous in the 90s. This one specifically was 1994. Yeah, I can't even remember what it's about, aside from that it's kind of Christmas themed, and it's part of this cheerleader series. But anyway, just kind of the 90s scary horror high school type stuff, and I read them when I was probably in middle school, and yeah, I really should read these again. They're probably not as scary as I remember now. Anyways, so yeah, so that's 1980s. There we go. That is my 20th century book tag. I had a lot of fun doing it. I found quite a few surprises that I didn't know I had. I found it really hard because I realized I don't actually have a lot of books that are set in kind of the mid-20th century. They're either modern and contemporary, or they are turn of the century or earlier. I was surprised by that. And I found some really neat stuff that I haven't looked at in a while. So I'm not going to tag anyone specifically, but if it looks fun to you, if you haven't done it, go ahead and do it and give me a link in the comments so I can check it out. And even if you have done it at some point, link that video in the comments so I can check that out too. So, that was the 20th century book tag. All done. Alright, bye. 1940s. For the 1940s, this was a surprise for me